welcome to Black Dog Knits. I'm Delaney and today I am going through everything that I knit in 2024. So 2024 was the first year that I knit the entire year, and it was my first full year of really garment knitting, which was really fun and exciting and challenging at times. And so I kind of wanted to take you through what I've completed and then also just have a little bit of reflection of what I've done. So in 2024, I completed a total of 26 projects, 16 of which were garments. I knit 2 cardigans, 2 vests, and 12 sweaters. And 15 of these knits were actually gift knits, and 11 of them I kept for myself. And so a lot of these projects that I finished, obviously I don't have anymore because I gifted them, but I will try and insert either a photo or a little bit of video footage of those gift knits as I talk about them. And so today I will probably just go through everything in chronological order of when I finished them and then talk a little bit about the pattern, the yarn I used and everything, but it's really mostly meant to be a summary of everything and not really an in-depth dive into what each of these designs are. So we can start with the one that I'm wearing right now, which is the Moody Blues sweater by Turquoise Toque Designs. This is a drop shoulder pattern, which is designed so that you start bottom and work up to the top. And I knit this using Lion Brand Heartland yarn, which is a 100% acrylic yarn, and I use the color Olympia. This is a really soft yarn that is both washer and dryer friendly, which is wonderful. And I find it quite warm. And I really enjoyed making this. I actually made 2 of them. This is the one that I kept for myself, but I also finished one for my sister-in-law. And that one is slightly different. I'll show a picture, but it's slightly different because instead of doing a cowl neck, I did a crew neck for it so that it wouldn't be quite as warm. She lives in LA, so I felt like a cowl neck might be a little bit warm there, but for me, who I live in Vermont, so I wanted something really cozy and warm for the long winter that we have, I did this cowl neck, and I find it really warm and cozy, and it's really nice to have either when I'm inside or even if I'm outside. I will say the cowl doesn't really fit under my coat. I kind of have to like pop it out, but that's fine. And this is the longest sweater that I made this year probably because it is bottom up. I was worried that I just want to make sure that it was going to be the right fit. And so I do think that it is a little bit on the long side, but I don't think it's so long that I don't want to wear it or anything, but it does kind of poke out of my coat a little bit, so it definitely is on the longer side. This is it in the back so you can see, and I will say on the sides they're supposed to have like a ladder rib I think on them, but I didn't do that for this. I think I was kind of intimidated at the time, so I just did regular sleeves in stockinette stitch. And I will say the sleeves are pretty baggy, but it does go with the kind of ease, the kind of great amount of positive ease in the sweater anyways. I find that it's a little bit difficult to work with the sweater just because the sleeves are baggy. They don't really stay up if I try and roll them up. But other than that, the purpose of the sweater really is to be kind of more of a cozy loungewear sweater. So that's the Moody Blues sweater that I completed in January. So in February, I made 2 cardigans. I actually made 2 Eva cardigans. So what you'll see in this series is that many of the patterns that I made multiple of. I am a creature of habit. I really like routines. I also like perfecting things. So once I've made something once, I kind of like to make it again. I think some people are the opposite, where they kind of want the novelty of new patterns, but I like the comfort of knowing a pattern once I've made it and then making it again, either for myself or someone else. And so in February, I made the Eva Cardigan Junior for my niece, who at the time was 8, so I chose the Eva Cardigan Junior so that it would fit her, obviously. And I used that pattern using Lion Brand. I'm not sure what the line was. It was actually yarn that my friend Lizzie from Knits by Lizzie had given me very kindly, and it was this really pretty pink yarn, and I don't really wear pink, but I thought this would be perfect for my 8-year-old niece, and so I made her an Eva cardigan. Fits her wonderfully. She actually still wears it, which makes me so happy every time I see her wearing it. And I made that one for her, and then I'm a rather petite person, and so I actually was able to find a size within the junior pattern that fit me, and so I made myself an Eva cardigan as well. The reason why you don't see it here is because I did not make it correctly, and I used yarn that was not the right one for this project and everything, and when I blocked it, it just was not the right fit or anything, and so I actually ended up frogging that sweater, or that cardigan, so I don't have it to show you here, but I will talk a little bit more about it in a bit. So that was my kind of February and I think probably early March work, and then in I think in the spring I moved on to another pattern, which I will get changed into. Okay, so in March I completed the Terrazzo sweater by Petite Knit, and at the time when this was released, apparently it was really popular. I didn't realize that when I chose the pattern, but I also really liked the pattern when I found it, and so I decided to make it. And initially I did want to do the high turtleneck that the pattern calls for, but as I was making this sweater, I decided that I wanted something that was a little bit more wearable every day, and so I opted for making the neckline a crew neck instead of a turtleneck, which has turned out to be exactly what I had hoped for, and that this is the sweater that I probably wear the most out of any of the sweaters that I made this year. Again, I used this using Lion Brand Heartland in the color Mount Rainier. I kind of had a thing for that yarn at the beginning of the year last year. I love that it's washer and dryer friendly. It's also not very expensive, so as somebody who was really beginning to make garments, it was a really nice option. And so I used that yarn for this. Because of the color, because it's just plain stockinette with a little bit of twisted rib edging, it's very wearable with pretty much anything and for a lot. I can dress it up or I can dress it down, but oftentimes this is what I'm wearing, and I have all but good things to say about this sweater. It is a saddle shoulder construction, which was the first time that I had done that, and I have found that I really enjoy that construction of a sweater, at least the fit on myself, and I kind of want to make another one of these sweaters, but I also should probably venture out into trying new designs. So this is the sweater. I made it a little bit shorter than maybe I would have wanted to, but I find that the fit it's kind of cute. It goes well with things. I don't think it's so short that it's necessarily cropped, but I do think that I like things a little bit longer. But this is kind of the side of it, and then this is the back. And yeah, this is one of my very favorite sweaters, which is great because I made it earlier on in the year last year. Okay, this probably looks very familiar in that it is actually the same pattern as my gray one, which I've just showed you. This is another Terrazzo sweater by Petite Knit, except I did opt for the turtleneck version this time, and I obviously did it in a different color as well. This is knit up in haiku sueño yarn worsted in the color cream, and this is a superwash wool yarn. It's 80% wool and then 20% bamboo or viscose, so it's really soft. It's supposedly washer friendly, however I like to hand wash anything that has wool in it just because I've spent all this time and all the resources on it and I don't want to ruin it, and so I don't really like to play or take that risk, but supposedly it is washer friendly. And I made this right at the same time. I was actually making two Terrazzo sweaters at the same time, and I think I started this one before I started the gray one, but I finished the gray one first, which is why I showed that one first. And that's kind of why I came up with the idea of doing a crew neck version for the gray instead of the turtleneck for this one. This turtleneck is technically supposed to be higher. I think it's supposed to technically like reach the end of your chin, if not go up a little bit higher, but just for wearability's sakes, I made this a little bit shorter. Also, I'm not going to lie, doing twisted rib for 8 inches is really not the most fun thing in the world, and so I didn't want to. It was kind of a practical thing as well as a patience thing, so I made the turtleneck a little bit shorter, and then this blocked out beautifully. Before it was blocked, it was kind of scrunched up, as many things that have wool are, but once I blocked it, it blocked out beautifully. It fits really well. I wear this for more kind of fancier events just because of the color and the fit. I think that this is a little bit more of a formal sweater. And it fits really well, as does the other one that I just showed you. And I personally usually don't wear white very often. Most of the stuff that I own, I find, is not white or cream or anything, mainly because it's terrifying for me to wear because I don't want to spill on it or ruin it in any way. I also have 2 dogs, and so I feel like dogs, mud, white don't really go well together, and so this is kind of a piece that I wear, but I wear with caution, and so it doesn't get nearly as much wear as my gray sweater, which is what I've learned. But nevertheless, I do enjoy this sweater, and I'm also proud of this sweater as well. So after I finished this sweater, I took a bit of a break from knitting. I actually made the one sweater that I don't have any photos of, which I'm really bummed about, is a sweater that I made for my mother-in-law in May and June last year. It is the No Frill sweater by Petite knit. And when she realized that I was knitting, she asked for a yellow sweater, and so I made her a yellow sweater. It was actually really helpful. Most people will say, if I say I'll make you a sweater, they'll say I like this sweater, but for her, she said that she wanted a yellow sweater, so it was really helpful to have a color. But then she also sent me a diagram. I'll put it in if I can find the picture. I don't know if I still have it, but she sent me a diagram of like a little sweater that she had drawn out with all the dimensions that she wanted. So it was perfect because then I could go on to whatever patterns that I could find and see if the dimensions match what she wanted, and that's exactly what I did. So I made her a No Frill sweater by Petite knit. You'll see that a lot of the sweaters I made this year were by Petite knit, and she just has so many options, and her designs are really timeless, which I really like. And so I found the No Frill sweater for her, and I made her that. It's a yellow acrylic yarn. Apparently she wears it a lot, but unfortunately I don't have any photos of it. And that's what I finished. I think I finished it I made it in May and June last year or something like that. And then after that, I took a long hiatus from knitting, unfortunately. I just completed my PhD this past summer, and so kind of June until when I completed that, I had no time for knitting. On top of that, I also decided to get a puppy, which, if you're looking for unsolicited advice, I wouldn't really advise pairing writing a thesis with getting a puppy, but that's what I did. And so I took a break. Unfortunately, I missed the summer knitting season, so that's kind of a goal that I have for next year, which is to knit more lighter weight garments. But then once I completed that, then I really got into knitting. I had a fair amount of time back to be able to knit, and so then I can kind of jump in ahead from spring to fall for the rest of my video in terms of the projects that I finished then. Okay, now we're kind of zooming ahead. This is the Stockholm sweater, again by Petite knit, which is a very popular pattern that I completed in October. I finished this right in time for Rhinebeck, and this is the first sweater that I have on hand that I completed in the fall. And it's a drop shoulder construction. After making the Moody Blues sweater, I really wanted to make another drop shoulder sweater, and I'd heard really great things about the Stockholm sweater, and so I wanted to make one for myself. I used a yarn that is very special to me because I purchased it in London at Beautiful Knitters. This is called Skady by Hey Mama Wolf, and it's a really soft and great yarn. It's merino wool, and it just is really soft. It was really nice to work with, and I have a lot of really great things to say about it. Unfortunately, I can't really source it in the US, or I can't really find it in the US, but if I could, I would probably buy more of it. And then along the edging, I decided to add a contrast color, and so for this, because it was fall, I really wanted to make this more of a fall themed and colored sweater. So I used Pure Gint in the color dark brown, I think, as it looks. And I love the fit of this sweater. It's definitely different for me because I oftentimes do not wear this color. I mostly wear either neutral colors or blue and sometimes green. And so this was a bit of a change for me. I think I would probably reach for the sweater more often if it were a color that I wore more often. Also, I usually don't try and wear or make clothes that are seasoned necessarily or meant for a specific season. And so this was kind of my first time doing that. And I think what I've learned from that is that that's not really my cup of tea, and I would rather make something that I can wear kind of all year round as opposed to make something that I can wear maybe like you can wear anything any time of year, but that I feel like is more suited for certain times of the year. And so I like this. I might make another one, but again, I should probably venture out into different patterns and designers. I made it a little bit short. I really thought that this was going to grow more when I blocked it, and I've even blocked it again to try and lengthen it a little bit, but it's a little bit shorter than I was kind of hoping after blocking, but I enjoy it, and I actually was wearing it before I started this video today just to try and get a little bit more wear out of it. This is it in the back, and the side, and the front. And I will say the other thing about this sweater is that when I was making it, I was so excited once I had finished the top part and gotten into knitting in the round to be knitting in the round that I just omitted the directions and started knitting in the round, which maybe was not the best idea. I kind of got ahead of myself. And so I didn't realize that there's actually more body shaping in this. And I think that that probably would have helped with the sweater a bit too. It is a little bit boxy, and I think some decreases in after starting in the round probably would make it fit a little bit better and have a nicer silhouette. But I still do like it. I wore it for Thanksgiving and plan to keep on wearing it, even though it is a little bit more outside of my normal color palette, I should say. So yeah, that's the Stockholm sweater by Petite. Okay, the next pattern that I have and that I made for myself is the Arctic Light sweater by Toque or Veronika Lindberg. And this is a sweater that I became very familiar with because, like many of the other patterns that I knit this year, that I actually knit 3 of these this year. This one that I'm wearing right now is made out of Barocco Ultra Alpaca in the color Avocado, and I think that this color was made for cables. It looks so good. I really love the details and the way that they pop in this color, and I am really happy with this sweater. There was a little bit of a challenge with the sweater, which is part of the reason why I made 3 of them. I initially made one for my cousin using Barocco Comfort in the color Ivory, and so I'll show a picture here. But I also made another one for myself in this yarn and had some difficulty with gauge. That's something that I'm still learning, but definitely learned a lot about this year, was kind of the importance of gauge, obviously, which apparently wasn't so obvious to me in the beginning. And so it ended up being way too big, and it was really just a different size sweater than what I wanted to wear. And so I ended up actually giving my cousin 2 of these sweaters, and then I made one in the right size for myself. And I love this sweater. I wear it a lot. It is a bit short, but after making this 3 times, I was just like, it's done. It's gonna be what it is, and I still wear it a lot. And I actually, when I made this sweater, I tagged Webs in it, and then I posted on Instagram for Thanksgiving a photo of myself and my cousin wearing the sweater, and Webs actually ended up sharing the photo on Facebook, which was really exciting and kind of like yay knitting moment for me. And so this sweater has brought me a lot of frustration, but also a lot of joy, which I think has kind of paid off through kind of the difficulties that I had while making various iterations of the sweater. And so I gave the sweater to my cousin, and when I gave it to her, then I was with some other family members, and one of them was asking when he was going to get his sweater, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not really sure. But then my aunt was being very gracious and suggested that I make him a hat, and so that kind of brings us into our next section, which is some of the accessories I made this year. I found the Windschief pattern by Stephen West on Ravelry, and I really liked it, and so I decided to make my uncle a Windschief hat using Scout yarn in Navy Heather. And this is actually a hat that I made for myself in the same yarn. It didn't use an entire skein, so I ended up making one for myself because I liked it so much. I wear this hat every single day. This is definitely my most worn knit of the year just because it's an accessory and I wear it every single day while I'm outside. And I love the pattern. I just think it's so simple but also kind of modern. And I think that some people don't like hats when they fit like right on your head, but I personally prefer that, I think. So I really like that about this hat. And let's see what else. I did do a folded over brim for this hat just so that it would fit my head a little bit better. And I also think I made this hat a little bit smaller because my head is rather small. But the nice thing about a hat is that it's pretty easy to adjust the size. So I made one for myself, one for my uncle, and then I also made one for my husband in this color, or in this Barocco Lannis yarn. And this hat is in worsted weight yarn. The pattern calls for DK weight yarn, so I made a size smaller than I would have made for him. And this hat actually fits me pretty well as well. It's a little bit looser, but if I have my hair up or something, or if it's just really cold out, I oftentimes find myself reaching for this hat. And so I do wear both of these hats, and I think it's a really great pattern. It's really beginner friendly, so if you're looking for a hat to make that is not just a plain stockinette or ribbed hat, I do think that this is a really great hat to make, and you can make a lot of them because it's a hat, so it knits up pretty quickly. So I would highly recommend this pattern. This is probably one of my favorite patterns that I found this year, and I will most likely be making more in the coming future. So these are 2 hats that I finished in the fall as well. And then another accessory that I finished, or another couple accessories that I finished this fall, were I made myself a pair of vanilla socks. These are in Wonderland Yarns, which is a Vermont-based company, which is fun. And the colorway is, I can never remember what the colorway is of these socks, but I use the basic sock pattern by Summer Lee. Highly recommend it. I found it very helpful, and it also has some video tutorials, I think, for every step in the pattern, which can be really helpful if this is the first pair of socks that you're making, which was the case for me. So I made these in the smallest size using 2.25 millimeter needles. This was really fun. I had never made socks before except for one that I made in worsted weight yarn on like 6 millimeter needles, so we're not going to count that. And I do think that this yarn is not the best for like everyday socks, but I do wear these socks either in the house or sometimes when I'm sleeping, just because it is kind of chilly at night. So I made these socks for myself, and then I liked making socks so much, and I had also purchased yarn at Rhinebeck, sock yarn at Rhinebeck, and so I made a pair of vanilla socks also for my husband in this. And this, they look kind of like stockings because they are so big, but this is using Dachshund Daddy Knits yarn in the color Coffee Shop, I believe, and again, really soft yarn. This is a little bit hardier than my purple socks, I think, and it's just fun to have kind of like crazy socks, because I personally probably wouldn't wear this for like a sweater or this for a sweater, but it's fun to have a pop of color in your socks. People don't really see your feet very often, so I have really enjoyed making socks as well this year. So those are 2 pairs of socks that I made, and then we can keep on moving, so I should get changed into my next outfit. Okay, so the next sweater or garment that I made this year, it's not a sweater, it's a vest, as you can see pretty clearly here, was the Staffin vest by Rebecca Clow. And this is inside out, so I will change again. Okay, here we are. So this is the Staffin vest by Rebecca Clow. This is actually a pattern that's being released in 2 days, so if I can get my act together, hopefully I can have this video out before the pattern is released, but if anything, it is either about to be released or just released. And this is an all-over textured vest that I test knit for her in November, I think. And I used Wool of the Andes yarn from Knit Picks for the first time. I thought the yarn was fine. I think it's great for stitch definition. I don't know if I would use it again. I think I've used other wool yarns that I like knitting with more, but I did think that it did its job in being able to show off the texture in this sweater, or in this vest, very well. And I really want to make the Staffin sweater as well. I think my friend from Knits by Lizzie and I might be hosting some sort of knit along in the winter for the Staffin sweater. But anyways, this was my first vest, so that was really fun. I had just gotten through several sweaters and I really wanted to make something that didn't have sleeves, because sleeves were not my favorite thing until I bought some shorties, and now I don't really mind sleeves that much. But at the time I was really not a big fan of sleeves, and so I really wanted to try making a vest. Also, I don't really wear vests. Usually I wear this vest with some sort of t-shirt underneath, but right now I'm wearing a tank top. Also, that's something that I should note for all of these. I've been wearing a tank top underneath, so I haven't been wearing, it's not like all of these are being shown with nothing underneath. It's I do have one like kind of light layer underneath all of this, so you can get a sense of what they look like over that. But I finished this vest, and I had never worked textured work flat, and so it took me a little while to figure that out. But once I finished it, I was able to finish this vest in like a week. And it only used, I think I used 420 meters of yarn, so it really doesn't eat up a lot of yarn. It's very versatile. I usually wear this, oh yeah, that's what I was saying. I usually wear this over a t-shirt, but because I'm wearing a tank top for all of the other things, I just figured I would show this over a tank top. And I really don't wear it a ton, but I do wear it sometimes. I think if I can figure out a way to style it a bit more, then I would maybe wear it some more. But it does encourage me, or it has encouraged me to want to make a few more vests for myself, just because it is nice to have another layer on top without the full sleeves. If you want something a little bit warmer, that's not going to be quite as warm. And that's pretty much all I have to say about this. I think I did the first size in the pattern. So this is what the smallest size in the pattern looks like. And it was a really enjoyable experience. I thought it was fun kind of connecting with other knitters. I didn't really make like knitting friends per se, but I did get to see kind of more, I was introduced to more people, I should say. And so that has been interesting as well, and kind of part of the reason why I started a knitting Instagram and knitting YouTube channel is because I wanted to really venture into being able to connect with other people and see what they're making, just for inspiration and fun. So that has been, I like that about the test knit, and I hadn't test knit before, so it was a nice introduction to it nevertheless. So the Staffin vest by Rebecca Clow. Okay, so my last finished objects for myself of 2024 were a pair of socks as well as this sweater. And so this pair of socks is the Hermione's Everyday Socks by Leuder, and I talked about these socks in my most recent podcast. I made these socks using Perennial yarn by Kelborn Woolens in the color silver, and I love the texture in these socks. They were really easy to make and really fast to make, and I definitely want to make myself another pair of these socks in another color. Part of what I really love about these socks is the heel pattern, and it's really soft and squishy, and I also just think that the pattern itself is really a nice kind of geometric twist on a typical slip stitch heel. So these are the Hermione's Everyday Socks by Leuder, which I really like. And then this is my last finished object of 2024. I finished this sweater, I think, on New Year's Eve. I think I was actually in bed on New Year's Eve weaving in ends, which is a story of my life as an introvert. But I called this sweater my revival sweater because if you remember earlier in the video, I was talking about my Eva cardigan, which I had to frog. And ta-da, this is the yarn that I used for my Eva cardigan initially that I used again and made into a Monday sweater for myself. And so if you're keeping track of the project count, which I'm not at this point, but if you are, you might be saying, oh, all your projects don't equal to what you said in the beginning. And I will go back and say that this was not the first time I had made the Monday sweater. I had heard great things about the Monday sweater, and so I made one. That was actually the first project that I completed after I finished my degree. And I made a Monday sweater using Veronika Comfort, which is a 50% nylon and acrylic yarn. And it's really soft. I was really excited to get back into knitting after I had taken such a long break. Made it for myself, wore it all the time because I just loved how soft it was, loved how it fit, everything. And then unfortunately I put it in the wash, and I thought it was washer friendly. I think it is, but it shrunk a fair amount. It was already kind of a little bit on the shorter end, and so it ended up shrinking a fair amount, and so I gave it to my niece for Christmas. It fits a 9-year-old, that's how much it shrunk. So I don't have that sweater with me, unfortunately, but this was kind of my replacement for that. And part of the reason why I call it my revival sweater was because, one, I'm trying to revive the pattern, and two, I was trying to revive the yarn that I had frogged from my other cardigan. And so I also made several sweaters for other people in my family for the holidays and birthdays and everything. And so another one of the sweaters that I completed was a self-drafted pattern of another sweater that I made for my niece for her birthday. I can put in a picture here. And then I also used the Monday sweater and the step-by-step sweater patterns, kind of crossed them together and made a sweater for my sister-in-law for Christmas. And then lastly, the other project that I finished in 2024, right for the holidays, was a hat for my brother using yarn that is local to me from Junction Fiber Mill in Vermont. I used that to make him a hat, which he apparently really likes and wears all the time. And then I also, my kind of like big project, I would say, of the year, or my biggest, maybe most challenging project of the year, was making my dad a vest. He had requested a vest, and so I made him the Drew Sweater Vest 2.0 by Marley Bird for Christmas, and it was definitely a labor of love. I talk about it a lot in my last podcast, but I'll put in a picture here so that you can see that that was also another one of my finished objects of 2024. And so I think that's all of it. Oh, I think I forgot to show you my Sophie scarf, but I did use leftover yarn that I had from this, and I used that to make a Sophie scarf. And I think I'm getting ahead of myself, and I forgot to mention that this is Monos yarn, and this is in the Marla line. So this is really nice yarn that was gifted to me by my mother last Christmas, and so it's even more special because of that. And so I have that Sophie scarf. I don't really wear scarves, and so I am probably going to give it to a family friend of ours. And so I kind of counted that as a gift knit, but I don't have it on me, unfortunately, so I can't show it to you, but everybody knows they're these croissant looking scarves when you roll them up, and they're very popular, and so I made that as well this year. So that kind of wraps up everything that I made in 2024. It was a crazy year, both personally and also knit-wise, just because there were a lot of different projects that I worked on, a lot of the same projects that I worked on, and a lot of learning that happened. And so kind of looking ahead into 2025, I wrote down some of my goals, which I'll look back on, which one of them was to, and this is more of a fun thing, it's not really something that is necessary, but one of the things that I thought of was, when I was putting this together, was it would be really fun to know how much yarn I use in total next year. So that's kind of one of my goals, is to keep track of the meterage of the yarn that I use. And then another goal that I have, which is something that I did a lot of obviously in this past year, is to keep on gift knitting. I love making things and giving them to people who mean a lot to me. And it's one of the ways that I feel like I can sustain this craft and this hobby, is by making things but also giving them away. Otherwise I would have just like stacks of sweaters, and I don't really need that. I like to have a good staple wardrobe, but I don't need a wardrobe that's like bursting out of my closet by any means. And so I do want to keep on gift knitting. And then I also want to try new techniques in the new year, try new patterns, try new designs, try new designers. And so this is one of my goals for the upcoming year, is to try color work. My friend and I have been talking about steeking. One of the sweaters that I want to make in the new year is the Lindberg sweater by the Crayabea Rebecca Clow. And that uses half fisherman's rib, which is something that I haven't done. So really trying out, expanding what I do. Another thing that I am really bad about is I always just do the regular cast off, bind off method. And so I kind of want to learn new techniques in terms of casting on, casting off, stuff like that. And also just, you know, being a little bit more patient while I am making things. And I think it would probably pay off. I think some of the issues that I had with some of the sweaters that I made maybe would have gone a little bit better if I had been a little bit more patient. So just kind of like maybe doing a mid-project block, or frogging back on something in the middle of a project instead of having to make a whole nother one, or starting over completely once you've finished, stuff like that. And then lastly, this is something that I know is kind of ambitious, but I do kind of want to try dabbling in making a design of some sort. And I don't know what this would be, but I do want to make at least an accessory, some sort of accessory design, and also potentially some sort of sweater design in 2025, just to not really, I'm not by any means trying to be like, oh, I want my pattern to be widely recognized and known or anything, but it's more just like a challenge for myself to really try designing something, like having a vision, being able to execute it, and then also I've never graded a pattern, but I have made patterns or kind of used other patterns to make garments for other people, and so I do kind of want to try that out just as a fun mental exercise and challenge for myself. And so those are kind of some of the things that I'm thinking about going into 2025. I know that we are already a week into January, but I am hoping to put together some of the designs that I want to knit in 2025. I was thinking of maybe doing some sort of make 9 or something, so that I can really look at what my vision is for the upcoming year and see what it is that I can achieve, just all within the realm of having fun and enjoying this craft for 2025. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and that perhaps you found some of the patterns that you've also made, or maybe found some new patterns that you would like to make. But if anything, thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to give this video a like. That helps it reach more people. And then also, if you want to see more from me, also feel free to subscribe to my channel. I try to post podcasts somewhat regularly, and also other kind of random videos sprinkled in between. But for now, I wish you happy knitting and a happy new year. Bye!